Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to Crelate's and um, Human Predictions presentation on how to build a strong webinar brand. Thank you for holding, and thank you for bearing with us as we worked out some of our registration issues. This is a new platform for us, so thank you very much. We're excited today to talk about building a strong employer brand and why recruiting agencies and staffing agencies also need to do that for themselves these days and can no longer really rely on the brand of your clients alone. I'm Sean Leslie. I work on the marketing team here at Crelate, and just wanted to introduce our panelists here. First, Pache Gray. Pache, if you wanted to introduce yourself
Yeah,
as we get into this roundtable discussion.
yeah, thanks, Sean. I'm really excited to be here today. So my career journey in HR actually started accidentally in staffing, from taking a temp gig, working on the front desk, to actually moving into the staffing side. Temp to hire, direct placement on both the professional and industrial side, and even included a stint in sourcing. Along the way, it's kind of come full circle to working on the product side, servicing staffing and recruiting agencies, where I now manage the people and HR function for Crelate.
Awesome. Thank you, Pachi. Next up, Chris Hesson. Chris, if you want to introduce yourself, please go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. My name is Chris Heston. I'm one of the product consultants with Crelate. Currently, I help onboard new customers to Crelate, but in a past life, and I don't think you ever truly give it up, I worked the desk and I was a recruiter. I started off on the staffing side. I did fully retained HR leadership search, and I did the contingent model more on the manufacturing end. But I spent the last 6 years with a corporate side of a staffing, and I was the technology and operations consultant for about 350 global recruiting firms. So a lot of what I try to do ties operations and technology into how do you grow your business? How do you take it to the next level? How do you make that jump from a 1 million to a 2 million or to a $5 million staffing firm?
Yeah, awesome. And I can speak from experience that Chris is who I reached out to internally whenever I have questions or marketing needs at Crelate. And last but not least, I want to introduce Matt Waters. Matt, coming from Human Predictions, a integration partner of ours at Crelate.
Yeah, hey everybody. It's great to be here with all of you. Like Sean said, my name is Matthew Waters. I'm a sales and customer success leader over at Human Predictions. Our team, our platform, all we do is focus on outbound passive candidate sourcing, predominantly with agencies. So we've got a ton of experience on how messaging and employer brand really play off each other and how critical both of them are. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you all. It's awesome to have all of you here. A lot of knowledge in this group. So Pachi, I wanted to start by asking you, we're talking about building an employer brand, a strong employer brand. What's the benefit of that for staffing and recruiting agencies?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all here because we do recognize the importance in attracting and retaining the right people, right? I think you're going to have a series of slides here kind of outlining some like big stats, right? So I think that one of it is, 80% of talent acquisition managers believe that branding has a significant impact on the ability to hire great talent. If you go to the next slide, I think it's not just about posting a job and waiting for those applicants to start rolling in, or even relying on working with the best employers in town. It's going to attract the right talent when and where they're needed. And so that means like less effort and time, and we all know how valuable time is in staffing and recruiting. And then if you go to the next slide, I actually really like this stat. So this applies to my own experience when choosing to come work for Crelate or for any of my past employers. So like, what kind of content do they produce? How do candidates and past and current employees rate them, like on Glassdoor, for example? Job seekers are savvy these days, and it's actually we're moving to this interesting period like post-COVID, where the job candidates are actually the ones who are asking me, the tough questions, right? They want to ensure the right fit as much as, we want to do it from the agency and the employer side. Another part of it is also, recruiting is a numbers game. the number of qualified candidates that we can get means a greater chance of quality hires, which in turn reduces the overall cost of recruitment. Sometimes more resource or just smaller agencies are reluctant to invest in branding because that cost may seem steep in relation to the immediate returns. So it's important to take into account that a reduction in cost per hire means that you can better invest that money elsewhere.
Awesome. And Pache, if I get ahead of you or am dragging behind, just let me know. I'm going to bump to the next slide now.
Yeah, will do. And then you're just alluding to my point a bit ago about how valuable time is. Having that strong brand helps to have a faster time to hire. More placement equals more opportunities, equals a better bottom line, equals just bigger impact, on this whole engine of prosperity that we're all a part of. And then opposite of that, not having that strong brand is going to result in spending more per hire.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think it's more than just about attracting the right candidates. It's also about retaining the right talent. And so I've made this interesting move from recruiting into HR, where I'm kind of dealing with maybe sometimes the aftermath, right? So, you spend all this time, and effort nurturing your candidates, and then you cheer when they accept a placement or a job, and then you think, okay, I can move on to the next. But if your awesome talent steps into a job and they start to realize, hey, reality isn't matching what was actually pitched to me during the recruiting process, speaking with my HR hat on, it's going to make a really unhappy employee, and so that in turn is going to result in an unhappy client. You may have to start your search over. And we all kind of know unhappy employees, what they tend to do is they tend to tell people. They may leave a negative, Glassdoor review or just a review on Google. And so it's hard to overcome a negative review online, let alone just a bad, reputation overall. And I think no investment in terms of money is going to quickly erase that. So if we go to the next set of slides here, we do see, that impact. Branding impacts, I think you may have gone a little too far ahead, but it's all right. There's a lot of numbers. Branding impacts an agency success, from recruitment to engagement to retention. I think to even having a competitive advantage. And Chris could probably speak more to this, but having a roster of all-star talent is so crucial to remaining a competitive advantage within your industry, right, or within your city, of other agencies. And so that's I think that's why it's important to invest in branding and to do it right.
Awesome, and that was really useful. Thank you, Pache. And so, Chris, I'd like to ask you, I think, and I don't want to diminish Matthew or Pache's experience in the industry, but I think you have the most experience out of all of us. How do these branding efforts apply to staffing and recruiting companies? Knowing that
I think branding is not just for your clients. In today's market, it's for you and your firm as well. And if you look at the last 20, 30 years, the recruiting game has changed fairly substantially. I worked at a firm, and I'm sure many of you on the call have as well, maybe earlier in your career, where if you didn't hit 100 dials a day, you weren't going to last. There are still firms that operate with that mindset, but they are becoming fewer and farther between. I think there has been this paradigm shift in what recruiters do and how they do it. I think technology has had a lot to play with that. Look at the advancement of artificial intelligence. If you look at what AI is going to have the ability to do, maybe it does now in some extent, but it absolutely will in the future. Being able to run a search, identify people on LinkedIn, reach out and do the initial contact, send an email. AI can do that. If that is all you as a recruiter are offering, you are very replaceable, and you will be replaced by a very cheap technology product here in the next 10, 15 years, if not tomorrow, which means we need to shift from this purely outbound model of I'm going out to target candidates, I'm calling active, passive talent, trying to bring them in, to building that reputation so you have those rock stars in the industry coming to you. They need to know your name, know your brand, know who you are. And that is something that is definitely an investment in time, an investment in money. But building that is going to ensure that you have that inbound pipeline and you are branding yourself as an expert. Technology in that shift, I think, is also going to change that paradigm of a recruiting from being that transactional business of, hey, now that you're placed, that's the end of our relationship, to an ongoing relationship. Several of the firms I worked at, some of my top clients were former candidates. I'm sure many of you are in the same boat where you're building this long-term relationship. A computer will never be able to build that relationship. But it starts with your brand and your presence, because your candidates are going to not only look and try to figure out who your client is, but they want to look and see who you are. What's your presence on LinkedIn? What's your presence online? What does your website look like? Are you partnering with charities? Or what's your mission statement? Those are things that now more than ever will impact, will a candidate pick up that phone and call you back? Or are they actually going to reach out to you to initiate a conversation?
That was awesome. Thank you, Chris. And so, excuse me, I'm finding the right slide. Okay. So, Matt, these are all, Pache and Chris just laid out a lot of the benefits of building that strong employer brand for agencies. So how do you do it? What are the first steps? How do you, I have some slides here that talk about, let's see. Oh, I'm going the wrong way, apologies. People say that branding is becoming more like marketing these days, and I wondered if you could speak to that.
Yeah, so Chris and Pache both probably have more expertise when it comes to building an inbound funnel. My expertise really comes from kind of what Chris mentioned, where outbound passive messaging, really thinking of that as an extension of our employer brand. And it is somewhat like marketing, right? Because you're building lists, you're reaching out to those lists based on some criteria. But all too often we think of it just as, what does our website look like? What does our branding look like? What does our marketing look like? Our outbound outreach is very much a part of this. Are we personalizing what we're saying? Are we reaching out to the right types of people? And in that sense, outbound messaging is somewhat like marketing, but very much a part of all of this. So, Sean, I have some slides if you want to pull them up on kind of how, so just to give context, what our team does is we focus exclusively on outbound candidate sourcing and using data to make that more effective. Happy to show how we put together some of this more outbound marketing style messaging to be effective if you want to pull that up.
Would love to. I'm about to make you the presenter here, so take it away.
Okay, let me see if I can figure this out. Now we gotta figure out what screen to show.
Yep. Yeah, for our attendees, we had, as I said, we're new to this platform, so I had some real quick learning to do before this presentation.
And GoTo is not letting me present, John.
Okay, let me bring it in.
Either way, I can just talk to it without the slides as well. Not a huge deal.
Yeah, I'll bring them up, and why don't you speak to it while I'm bringing it up? Oh, there you go. It looks like you're presenting now.
I think we just got it. Cool. So talking about outbound messaging and how it's a part of the employer brand. Like I said, I think Chris and Pache are going to have the most expertise when it comes to branding our agencies and getting people to come inbound. Just importantly, going outbound, the way that we message candidates, the way we do business development to firms we want to do business with, that's going to reflect our brand. If our brand is talking about how our agency reaches out to the best talent and works with the best firms, well, then we need to send messaging that reflects that level of skill. And so there's three kind of core rules that we follow when it comes to effective messaging. And number one is, and it feels very obvious, but sending the message to someone who the job actually makes sense for. This is where bulk messaging or bulk sourcing can kind of get us into trouble, where I generate a list of 1,000 people. The odds that several people within that list don't make any sense for that job are probably pretty high. I have a couple of examples here with names blacked out to protect the guilty, but one of them is my recruiting colleague. who got an email about a Java developer job, even though she's a recruiter because she took a Java boot camp class at one point. The other one on the left is an offer for me to take a 3-month contract role for an entry-level sales job that I finished, a couple of years ago. So first and foremost, let's actually send these messages to the right people. When we do these bulk blasts, the people contained within those blasts know that that's what we're doing. Candidates are smart. Dynamic fields like first name and current companies are no longer enough to get past what I call the human firewall, right? You get an email, you know right away if it's automated or not. The highest level agencies are finding ways to get past this, whether it's through sourcing tools like Chris was talking about, better data. This is first and foremost, is we have to send it to the right people. Number two is this message has to be personalized to the point where the candidate knows it's for them. We like to use 2 personal things because that's pretty hard to falsify. But again, coming back to that human firewall concept of the highest level agencies, the highest level clients, they want the best talent, and that talent knows when an email has been generated using some script. So by using tools, by using data, writing really specific queries on LinkedIn or on Google, we can come up with enough in our filters to reference a couple of unique things, and that's going to be really important when it comes to response rates, when it comes to perception of our brand. It doesn't matter if it's on the business development side or on the delivery side. This personalization is going to have an impact on how they view us and if they tell people they had a great experience. And then number 3, of course, pretty simple, and all of these seem pretty simple, but keeping it short and sweet. We get a lot of recruiter messages, or a lot of our clients will have the urge to put the entire description of the job in the email. Don't do that. It's way too long. Nobody can read 2,000 words. Probably don't want to, especially if it's your first point of contact. We always recommend following up twice anyways. Those are great opportunities to include more about the role and why this specific person is being reached out to about that role. Our messaging partner Trinsley shows that most of responses come on those second and third touches anyways, and anything over 500 characters starts to take a huge dip. I've got some examples here. We're very tech focused, so for some of you on this call who don't do a lot of tech, a lot of these things probably don't mean much to you. But referencing unique sites they have, interests they have. Maybe it's something in their About Me section of their LinkedIn. Maybe they share an alma mater. Just finding some sort of similarity that we can use, and we can still do it in bulk using tools like LinkedIn or other sourcing tools. We just have to be a little more intentional on the front end building of the search and how our email copy corresponds to those filters. And when we look at it from a results standpoint, this is some of our own, we have an agency side of our house as well. Tech roles are tricky, and we're still in the 25, close to sometimes 30% on tech roles. Non-tech roles, we're well over 30% in these response rates. So it works. These people are now engaging with us as an agency. Our clients are happy because we're getting high-level candidates to interview for their roles. Both on the delivery side and the business development side, people are going to enjoy and appreciate personalized outreach to the right people. And so from my perspective, that's a huge part of employer brand. Combine that with what Chris and Pache were talking about by being involved in charities, having a great website, being involved with high-level people in the community, you're going to have a really good time building employer brand. So that's my little spiel. Hopefully that was somewhat connected to the rest of what we're talking about.
That was awesome, Matt. Thank you so much. I'm going to take control back here.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. There you go. I'm back. Great. So, Matt, that was really useful. Chris, how Matt started to talk about some of the places you curate your presence across the internet. What are, we talked about email, Matt talked about email. What are some other places that you need to curate your brand, your employer brand, some other touch points?
I think in today's world, everybody knows LinkedIn is #1 at this point. Whether we want it to be or not, it's the drug for recruiters. You're hooked on it. I'm sorry, it's not going away anytime soon. So for most recruiting firms, that's going to be a place to live and get a lot of info. Outside of that, you need to be very niche specific. If you work in the tech sector, maybe you're going to be on GitHub and Stack Overflow. You're looking at other profiles and social networking sites. Maybe you're looking at Facebook. In all honesty, the best way to find out where to go, talk to your candidates and ask them where they live. What sites are they on? Where do they have profiles? You have access to the people with answers. You're talking to them every day. If you're not asking the right questions, you're missing out on incredible information that's going to make you more powerful at what you do. So definitely get out there. One thing to piggyback on what Matt said, keep your email short. I mean, he said 500 words. I can't agree more. I can't tell you how many people will put 4,000 words in an email and wonder why no one responds. I don't know if you're like me, but my cell phone gets the ping that the email came in about 10 seconds before Outlook does, which means even though I know it's going to hit Outlook, I always pick up and look at my phone first. Make the assumption that your targets, whether candidates or potential clients, are looking at it on their cell phone. And if they get carpal tunnel before they get to the bottom, you have lost. Keep it short, keep it sweet. Don't throw so much at them because they don't care and they're not going to read it.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Chris. And there was a stat I saw somewhere, right, social media is super important, especially for younger candidates, perhaps. There it is, 68% of millennials visit an employer's social media properties. A lot more than old people like me. So Pache, one of the things we talked about a little bit was how that employer brand also influences employee referrals. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hold on to the belief that, some of our best hires come from referrals, right? My background is primarily in smaller early stage companies. And so, we've had to really rely on that. And it's turned out really well, for us. Same goes for Crelate. And so, in addition to that, like the agency that I worked at was a smaller, independently owned agency. So we didn't have the big name brand, that some of our competitors in town had. And so we consistently had applicants, come in and applied for openings because they heard about the positive experience that a friend had with us, even if that person hadn't gotten a placement yet. So I think that it's really important to try to nurture that. And so having a process in place, where you are automatically asking all of your candidates and including your employees for a referral process would be so important. And then it also helps when you can add in a little bit of a bonus if you can get that referral to start.
Sure. That's great. Well, how do you start building that brand? I mean, Matt can answer this one. When you think about, I mean, these are all great tools to share that brand, but where do you start when you're building it? What are some of the things you think about when you're first establishing or you want to communicate or build that brand? What are the first things you think about, Matt?
Yeah, I would like to take it back to what Chris mentioned, which is where are your candidates spending their time, right? Like we work specifically within the technology sector. So a lot of the companies that we work with, people have GitHub profiles, Stack Overflow profiles, Meetup's very popular. And so companies having company GitHub pages, company Stack Overflow pages, this is where developers that they're looking to hire are hanging out anyways. Why not have a good profile and a good presence on that site? Like the slide you have pulled up right now, if we think about it specifically in tech, GitHub, Stack Overflow, those are social media to these developers. And so that's what they want to see. What we need to do then is have our messaging, our website, all really match that brand that we're trying to curate across the platforms that our candidates are spending their time. If we talk about on GitHub how we're developer centric and we care about matching them with the right tech stacks and the right engineering leadership, well, then we better do our research and make sure we're reaching out to the right people for the right teams and personalizing that outreach to them to make sure that the highest level candidates are responding. So I think it all really kind of plays together very nicely. Like Chris said, having a presence on the sites where your candidates are spending time, having a great website where you can talk about all of the good things you're doing, and then having personalized, effective messaging to those groups of people. You put that all together and candidates are going to have positive experiences. They're going to start generating referrals, which Pache talked about. Some of the best hires do come from that. Now you've got a sustainable engine that can keep feeding into itself from all of your different properties that your company has. So that would be my take on that.
That's awesome. And I think one of the things that is important to speak about is when you're establishing that brand, you need to think about, okay, what does our company stand for? What are our values? And then, being honest and forthright about that. And that's as the slide I have up here, when you communicate those, I think you'll find that the candidates you are getting are already a good cultural fit. And Pache, I don't know, maybe that's something you can speak to better being in HR now.
Yeah. So I really think that, for, using Crelate, for example, our guiding principles really say, the kind of person that, I think would be successful, at the company. And there's many of them, but I think they resonate with candidates, right? Because when candidates are talking to me, I'm evaluating them based on how well of a fit they would be. But in turn, when they're asking me, a little bit more specific about, a guiding principle or a value, I think it helps them, know what it takes to be successful. And so I think that is a really, really important aspect to look. And I think that, combined with your mission, really kind of helps to define your employer value proposition. And again, that plays into sources where you're recruiting candidates from and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. I remember our conversation well when I was interviewing with you.
Yeah.
So we just had Crelate just had an all hands meeting this morning where we spoke a little bit about brand, and so this next question I was going to ask is, how often do you recommend or how frequently do you communicate brand to your current employees, and how do you make sure that brand sort of permeates through the entire organization?
Yeah, I mean, it really starts from that first point of contact, with the candidate, and then it, percolates through the entire, the employee's entire life cycle, right? I mean, our guiding principles were, created to, again, attract the right, person to the organization, but it's also how we are evaluating that person, the person's performance, throughout their time with the company. And so it's stuff that, we're constantly talking about. I mean, I think we've had several company events, where we've done team building exercises based off of, our guiding principles. And so I think that just makes it a lot more authentic rather than just slapping, some values on your website. Because again, candidates and employees are savvy these days. They know when, you're just talking the talk and not necessarily, walking the walk.
Absolutely. Great insight. Chris, I know you wanted to speak to the visibility of your employer brand, perhaps externally and internally. And that could piggyback a little bit on what Pache was just saying.
Yeah, one of the things on your last question, Pache, is if you're waiting to talk to your employees and build branding when you need it, you're already too late. You need to start now. You need to begin that. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is right now. So work on that. A couple ways you can help increase visibility is by the type of content you're curating and pulling together. One of the best type of content and the easiest to create is stuff you don't have to build. Ask for referrals, ask for references on your business. When I was a recruiter, any candidate I worked with, when I was a consultant, any firm that I worked with, get them to write you a LinkedIn recommendation. When you go and look at somebody's profile and you see they've got 600 LinkedIn recommendations of all of these people saying they're incredible, they've done all this, they've helped me, they've done X, Y, and Z, ask for it. Especially when you have just placed a candidate, that candidate has this sense of maybe debt to you, not necessarily, but they owe you a little bit. The least you can do is say, hey, will you jump on LinkedIn, write me a recommendation on how the process went, what you liked. That hiring manager you made a placement with, ask that from them. Will you go ahead and just write me a recommendation on the process and what you thought and how it was to work with me? Use that to build content that you can push out. The best words to describe you are never yours. They're always somebody else's. So if you can have those references to fall back on, you can use that to curate, build it, because you're going to find, like I think Sean pulled in the beginning, candidates are going to come check you out when they see that call. When I have a call from an unknown number, I don't pick it up. I'll Google the phone number and see who called me. And then I'll go look that company up, or I'll go look that person up and see what I can find. I promise if you are sending a message over LinkedIn, over email, over text, over a phone call, they are looking you up before they decide to return your call or message or not. What are they going to see? And if they find nothing, they're not going to respond. Build that brand now, build that content, really catalog out of what you do and how you do it, and you're going to find you're in a much better position.
That's awesome. I think that's a great place to sort of see if we have any questions or anything you'd want to add. that we haven't spoken about. If not, I think I'll probably start to encourage people that if they want to learn more about human predictions or have any questions or about the webinar that they didn't think of while we were presenting, feel free to reach out to us at Crelate or Human Predictions. You can find all of us on LinkedIn too, as Chris said, was just so crucially important. And aside from that, if you all don't have anything that you wanted to add, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your insight and really appreciate you joining and sharing all of that information. Okay, well, thanks very much. Again, please, anyone who's on the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us on LinkedIn or to Human Predictions or Crelate via our contact or our company LinkedIn pages. Really appreciate you all coming. We'll send out a video of the webinar to everyone who registered tomorrow, and thank you once again. It's been a pleasure.